Okay, so welcome. Happy Sunday. We are about to embark on a 60, maybe a little bit more minute journey where we're going to go deep into terrain basics. Now, this might be new for some of you and it might be very familiar for others. So, yeah, take what you need and leave the rest, is what I always say. But I'm really, really hoping that you learn something valuable today. So, the outline of today's class, what you'll discover is why most health approaches fail to deliver lasting results, the foundational pillars of a disease-resistant terrain, practical techniques to begin transforming your health today, and how the realignment program integrates these principles. This is something that we'll discuss all the way at the end. As well as if you are here because you are interested or want to learn more about the program, we do have a really amazing deal for the next 72 hours for the people that have watched the masterclass. So stick around for that if you are at some point interested to go deeper, whether it is in container or in a self-paced version. So this is really perfect for you if you've tried everything, but you still struggle with symptoms. If you're ready to go beyond surface level healing, and if you sense there's an emotional component to your symptoms and you're open to holistic and energetic approaches. The last sentence is really key here because this is definitely not a conventional approach. So, it might shatter a lot of your belief systems. You might not resonate with everything that I share, and that is completely fine and normal, right? We are here to shift paradigms, and sometimes, yeah, it's not the right paradigm shift for you. So, some housekeeping as well before we get started. So, this is the less fun piece here. First of all, my invitation would be to be here for the next 60 minutes. Why is that? Right? I'm someone who always likes to just go on a walk when I do things, or I'm doing the dishes when I'm listening. But the real thing is that you can't fully listen when you're not present. And what I mean by fully listen is that if you're coming here with a very specific desire to learn something about your symptoms, you may have just, heard something, but it's one ear, one out because you're doing something else. And so if you're really here to get that specific download that you're waiting for, the invitation would really be to just be present. It's not that much out of your day, and I'm really hoping that you get really good takeaways from things. So, as I mentioned, if you have your camera on, I'm going to gift three of you to win a quantum healing bundle, which is my 30-day meditation bundle, as well as going into quantum healing, energy healing, as well as three different individuals that will win the 10-day reset bundle. So, if you have your camera on, that is one entry. And then if you do a story and a tag while you're listening, that's another entry. So, those will give you some bonus entries. And I'd also love to connect to you guys. So I'd love to hear in the chat why you're here and really what you're hoping to learn. That way I can just kind of skim through really quickly and see if there's anything that we are not covering yet, just to bring it in last minute. And also, I just love to connect to you guys. And yeah, it's always so strange for me to not know where in the world you are, who you are. So this just brings like the human element into it a little bit more. And then finally, my invitation would be to really trust yourself because ultimately you are the expert over your own body. Anything that I do or say may resonate or may not resonate. So, really, anything that I say, if you are like, this doesn't resonate for me, but she said it, so I should try it, that's an absolute no. Your body knows best. So, first of all, my story, I feel like I always address this in every single masterclass, but since a lot of you guys here are new, um, yeah, I'm just gonna go briefly over my story. So, first of all, I will start by saying healing is really not linear. So, not one diet, cleanse, or program will fix you. And I've really seen this in my journey because I'm that person that will think that, oh, this diet will fix me or this supplement will fix me. So, I've had about 8 to 10 years of chasing things that would potentially
Okay.
fix me. I had over 6 years of chronic gut issues, and I had 4 years of missing periods. And if I had them, they were extremely painful. I had chronic fatigue. I was bedridden for 3 years when I was in high school. So I didn't go to school for about 3 years. I was in bed every single day, couldn't get up. I had tried every single diet and cleanse. I've seen experts, doctors. No one could really help me. And I was in a really deep, dark depression. I had a lot of anxiety, panic attacks. I didn't really have many friends. I was very isolated. And I also was always retaining a lot of extra fluff. And I say excess weight for some people, right? I was never overweight, but it was a lot of water retention and just my body was unable to actually keep up with the workouts or, my diet. And most importantly, I had a lot of limiting beliefs and stories around my health. I thought healing wasn't possible for me. I had a lot of self-hatred and stored anger, shame, unworthiness, and sadness and fear. This was not only my childhood of bullying and my upbringing, but it was also a lot of stuff that I actually got from as early as in the womb. Like I've had memories in the womb where I felt my mother's sadness. And that obviously, which we'll get to, stores deep in our bodies. So my journey was up and down, right? I came into the holistic world about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was doing all these different cleanses and protocols and, doing SIBO protocols and whatnot. And there was a moment where I was just like, this is never going to heal. This is never going to resolve. And thankfully, I kept going. And it wasn't until I found detoxification that I saw really incredible benefits. For the first time ever, I was not bloated. My digestion was good. I was having energy. It was almost like I could see like I had like 8D vision. If you've experienced that shift, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, it's almost like you're watching reality with a blur on top of it. And I just came into existence and I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. I didn't know this was possible for me. And ever since, it's been a journey of ups and downs because even through detoxification, I had to learn the hard way that there is a thing such as detoxing too fast and too hard. So I actually ended up with a near-death experience after doing way too much at the same time. I ended up in the urgent care with hypothermia after an ice bath. My organs were, they say quote unquote failing. They're perfectly fine right now, but in that moment, my body was in complete shock. And this was really my wake-up call to see, it must not all be the physical. And this is really when I was invited to look into the nervous system, into my emotions, into my rigid belief systems, which were at the time, the more I cleanse, the more I need to get out of my body. I need to kill all the microbes, kill all the parasites, get all the metals out. And I was starting this never-ending war, which I'm seeing that a lot of people are stuck in nowadays. And so this is really where the last 2, 3 years have been this incredible journey of understanding the body beyond the physical, understanding, well, what creates a terrain or an ecosystem that creates, right, the foundation for parasites to come, for mold to come, for all these heavy metals to be stored in our bodies. So that is really what we're going to get into today. And that is also what makes up all of the work that I do, whether I work one-on-one with people or in a program, as well as just shorter offerings that I have. This is really the foundation of my work. Now, before we go into that, I'm just going to scroll through the chat here to read some of you guys's entries. So I'm seeing beautiful. We have people from Sweden, London, Hawaii. Awesome. New York. Beautiful. So great. Oh, I'm so excited to have you guys all here, and I'm sure more of you guys will join. And if not, maybe you're watching this back. So welcome if you are. And I apologize for the scroller. I have to admit people as well. I forgot to recruit one of my people here to co-host. So that said, let's get into it today. So we're going to get started with the fundamental problem. And this line is so great because this was my line for such a long time. I have tried everything and nothing works. This may seem familiar to you. So if this has been your tagline for the last couple years, just know that I've been there as well. And why do conventional approaches often fail? First of all, so many approaches focus on symptoms rather than root causes. And I also want to address right here and now that symptoms are also things such as heavy metals sometimes, such as parasite, mold. These can also be symptoms of a deeper imbalance. So, even a lot of holistic approaches nowadays and functional approaches still often focus on the symptom rather than the root cause. And we'll get into what can actually be a root cause for people because it's all different. It depends on your body. Then a lot of people and approaches treat the body as a collection of separate parts rather than the entire individual. So a lot of holistic medicine will still kind of treat, right, like different parts and say, oh, well, maybe you go to therapy and then maybe you do a physical cleanse or you work on this separately, but they don't really integrate them together or see how they are connected. So that is another thing that we'll discuss today. They overlook the role of terrain in disease development. And to kind of break that down into easier language, because I know some of you are like, what is a terrain, right? It basically, like if you look at this, is if you have an orange and the orange, right, like it starts to kind of like lose its juice and it's exposed to air and it starts to oxidate, right? Then there's mold that comes and then the mold breaks it down. So obviously, the terrain, which is made up both of the internal, so like the orange and all the parts and pieces internally, but also externally, right? So it has an external terrain and internal terrain. And so we really look at what is causing your body, for example, to mold, what is causing your body to have parasites. And we have to look at that in a way where we look at the entire system. So we look at your emotional terrain, your physical, your mental, and that's what we're essentially here for today. They also miss the crucial connections between physical, emotional, and energetic health. And they look at parasites, mold, bacteria, and other pathogens as bad versus good. How often do we hear this is a bad bacteria versus a good bacteria? I mean, if we just think about in nature, there's nothing such as bad and good. It just is. And so we really will start to understand when does the body need certain quote unquote bad bacteria versus good. So the challenge isn't what to remove from the body, but how to prepare the body for proper removal and restoration. So, first, we're going to go a little bit into theory. So, again, these are theories, meaning that, it doesn't mean that it's a widely accepted theory. Because right now, the entire medical system is built on germ theory, which means, right, disease comes from external pathogens. We have to kill the invader. This is why we have antibiotics. This is why we have sanitizers. The body is also seen as a battlefield. One germ equals one disease. So it's said that, okay, this one bacteria causes X disease, this one virus causes Y, right? So this is really how germ theory or modern medicine looks at things. Now, there's a lot of holes in that system, and this is where terrain theory comes in. And they actually came about right around the same time. It's just that one obviously is profitable and one really isn't. And I'm not going to go too deep into that. I'm not someone who dives deep into conspiracy theories or goes too deep into like, oh, and the government, this and that. But obviously, right? Many of you guys know what I'm talking about. So, terrain theory essentially says that disease develops when the internal environment allows it. So, what we need to do is focus on strengthening the internal resilience of the system. Now, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that really, in a nutshell, explains to why, if you haven't slept in a few days, if you haven't been hydrating well, if you are eating poorly, and then you get exposed, you go out and you play outside as a kid or something like that, you come home and you suddenly have an illness, right? Versus another kid or another person who has been sleeping well, has been eating well, and they never really get sick. So, this is really what explains some of that internal resilience. The body is also seen as an ecosystem, and the microbe itself is nothing, but the terrain is everything. So, that means that when they try to isolate microbes from the host, from the terrain, they actually haven't really been able to prove that the microbe directly causes dis-ease. It is only in a specific terrain that it causes dis-ease. And even then, it doesn't technically cause it, but it's found there. So your terrain defines your health. Why symptoms are messages, not mistakes. You don't get mold, parasites, or bacteria because you're weak. You get them because your system is intelligent to recruit them when your terrain is out of balance. So these organisms are seen as helpers, not invaders. So we'll get deeper into this because I know this is a very foreign thing for many of you, but you can think of them as nature's janitors. So they really show up when something is rotting, right? Like the orange that I was telling you about, and it needs to be broken down. So the presence of mold or yeast is a late stage response to unresolved internal waste. They are not the cause, they are the results. Meaning that if your system is full of undigested food, and this can be caused by many things. Let's say that you have chronic stress. Chronic stress is known to reduce stomach acid. It's known to really halt digestion, right? When you're in a fight or flight stage, you're not in a rest or digest state. So if you're in a fight or flight state all the time, you're in sympathetic dominance, you're always stressed. And this is even something that most of us are not aware of. Like we're running on stress hormones, even though we feel really quote unquote regulated or we're not necessarily perceiving stress, the system is under constant perceive of threat. So when we're in that chronic sympathetic dominance, that chronic fight or flight, our digestive system doesn't work properly at all. We're not digesting our food properly, we're not absorbing our nutrients, right? And now undigested food remains in the digestive tract. So, what do you think happens when all this undigested food remains, when things are just not, functioning optimally? The body will need different microbes, bacteria, parasites to help digest that. And this is really where we can see the candida, the mold, the parasites. They're not just there because you ate some sushi. Like, sure, sushi is an exposure. However, there's parasite exposure everywhere. And I think people nowadays are really like, it's just so much fear mongering instead of like actually like just clean up your body and you're going to be fine. Um, that said, we do have to take into account, for example, when you are having an open wound and you go swim in a lake that's full of like bacteria. In that moment, if the immune system, because you already have that internal weakness, doesn't have the strength to get rid of that bacterial infection, of course, we need antibiotics. Like these things are really, really helpful. The same thing with parasite infections, right? Let's say that you did eat something that was like full of parasite eggs and your system's already weak. Now you're going to need some antiparasitics because your body can't actually keep up with the amount of toxicity that's already in the system. The immune system is already weak, doesn't have the energy to fight off what's coming in. So, Western medicine is not bad. It is actually super, super helpful. We just need to know when to use it. And the same thing with like antiparasitic, herbs, cleanses. We need to know when to use it versus just throwing it at everyone. So, terrain theory, you can kind of break it down as a fish tank. And this is a really easy way to understand it. So, think of a house fish that gets ill. You look at the tank and it's filthy. The water is brown and murky and you can barely see through it. So, would you give the fish antibiotics in this case? Or would you just clean the tank and give it fresh water? That's like the easiest way to just look at it and break it down. You want to obviously clean the system, clean the internal terrain, and then if things still can't clean themselves up, and quite often they do. Most of the times they do. But just giving the antibiotics alone won't solve its problems because the tank is still dirty. So it's going to just get another bacterial infection in another place in the body. So when your inner environment is toxic, your cells can't function properly. Dis-ease thrives in an acidic, low oxygen, nutrient depleted, and excess glucose terrain. And yeast or candida really responds to that excess glucose. So it is again supporting the body because excess glucose really damages us on the on the inside. So pleomorphism, we're not going to go too deep into this today, but this is kind of what everything is built on. So pleomorphism is connected to that terrain theory, and it talks about how microbes can change based on their environment. So it essentially says that one single microbial seed called a microzyma can morph into different forms, bacteria, yeast, and fungus, depending on what your body needs to clean up. Now, a lot of you guys might be like, wait, this is completely new information. I've never heard of this. So I want you to understand it from this perspective. Let's think about an animal that dies. So the animal is completely healthy. We're going to talk about a deer in this case. A deer gets hit on the road. The deer is super healthy, right? It just is outside, it plays, it like eats clean grass. It's not like us where it just has a lot of emotional stagnation and eats a lot of heavy metals. So it's a relatively clean animal. Now, when it dies, within a couple hours, right, we're going to see a lot of bacteria. We're going to see maybe like some parasites or some worms that will like start to eat the flesh. We're going to see mold. Now, where did all of those bacteria and mold and fungus come from? The answer is from within the body. So, what these things are is they are opportunistic, meaning that when we give them the opportunity, which is quite often a low oxygen environment, right? There is a lack of oxygen to the body, which is why when the heart stops and when we stop breathing, all of these bacteria, yeast, and fungi can start to, replicate so many times. So this is really what we want to look at is your body needs certain microbes to clean up, and therefore these bacteria, yeast, and fungi will start to pop up and proliferate. So you really don't catch mold, but you cultivate it. This doesn't mean that exposure isn't a factor, but the internal terrain determines your susceptibility and colonization. So if your internal terrain is one where mold can thrive, then of course, if you live in a moldy home, you're going to get symptoms. However, if your internal terrain is not one where mold can thrive, right? It's full of oxygen, there's no stagnation, there's no excess waste, there's no heavy metals, then you can be exposed to environmental toxins. And then the moment that you leave the environment, so let's say that you move from your home, your body should be able to balance itself out relatively quickly. But unfortunately, that's not the reality for most of us. So, if your body is overburdened, acidic, stagnant, or oxygen deprived, the form of the microbes can change and adapt to the terrain. So, in a healthy terrain, microbes support regeneration and balance, right? We have trillions of bacteria in our gut, in our blood, like everywhere in our body, and they are super helpful. Like we would die if it wasn't for the microbes. There is no life without microbes. However, in a toxic terrain, they will transform into mold, fungus, or bacteria to help clean up cellular waste. And we see this because parasites actually can carry their weight in heavy metals. They eat your heavy metals. And this is also why when you just blindly start to do a parasite cleanse, you can often make the problem a lot worse because the parasite dies, then it releases the heavy metals, and now it's recirculating in your system. So germs do not cause disease, but they arise to respond to it. So beautiful. Now, homotoxicology kind of goes hand in hand. It's another theory that goes hand in hand with terrain theory. So, what it really does is, right, homotoxicology, the word explains itself. It explains how the body stores, shifts, and adapts to toxins when elimination pathways are blocked. So it's essentially explaining how when we actually can't release our toxins that we get exposed to, or even the toxins that the body produces, how it holds on to things and then how it stores them. So, number one, phases one and two is excretion and inflammation. So, during this time, this is really when the body is actively trying to detox. So, you can think about what we have a cold or a fever. This is actually a body, it's a body's detox process. So, it's a super intelligent thing that the body does to essentially purge the toxins. You'll start to sweat, you have more mucus production, fever, inflammation. And this is why I tell all my clients anytime you feel a cold come on or you feel like you're getting quote unquote sick, like celebrate it. Just be like, oh, I must be clearing something really big. And I actually start to support the body in that detox reaction, which is why it's so helpful to go into a sauna when we are quote unquote sick to help that detox process. Now, if the fever was something harmful to us, we wouldn't tell people to get into a sauna when we are sick. So it is super helpful. And anytime that we're suppressing a fever by taking medications, by taking, any sort of like ibuprofen or something like that, we're actually interfering with the body's detox process, making it, retain a lot of those toxins over time. Then we have phase 3 and 4, which is deposition and impregnation. This is what the body does if it can't get rid of those toxins quick enough. It will get pushed into connective tissues, joints, and organs to reduce immediate harm. So, this is why we see a lot of heavy metals in the bones, in the teeth, in the organs, in the brain. And then phase 5 and 6 is degeneration and dedifferentiation. Cells begin to break down or mutate. Symptoms like chronic illness, mold colonization, parasites, and even cancer can appear. So, this is really the last stage when the body has not been able to release its toxins. This is when cellular breakdown begins to happen. So, this isn't dysfunction, but it's a survival strategy. So, when detox and emotional processing are blocked, the body will call in its microbial cleanup crew, fungus, parasites, candida, bacteria to manage what you couldn't release. So, I'll say it again, you don't have candida, but your body created a terrain where candida is helping keep you alive. You also didn't catch mold, but your body became mold friendly and it responded. So we're gonna breeze through some holographic blood. This is something really fascinating. I was actually exposed to this not too long ago. I think about 6 or 8 months ago, I got exposed to holographic blood. And if you've ever seen the Veda Austin water experiment, it is super fascinating. We won't go into her work, but if you haven't, definitely look it up because it's so amazing and it really shows how a single drop of water can carry memory. And it does so through the form of holograms. So the same thing goes for our blood. Like we're made out of, I think it's 90% water, I believe. And water stores memory, and so does our blood. And so it is super crazy to think that our bodies wouldn't have this level of intelligence. So, what people do when they test your blood and they actually do holographic blood testing, they can actually look through dark field microscopy at the holograms that your body is expressing in your blood to see what your body is currently working on or what is putting the large amount of stress on your system. Now, I'm going to give you some images from my example because I'm a great example, right? I did all the detox work, I did a lot of emotional work. I was seeing like all these different specialists, and my body still was kind of struggling. I was like, why am I still experiencing, like gut issues and liver issues, and I'm still having brain fog, fatigue. So, when we're looking at these things, it is because we probably have prioritized some elements. For me, that was mostly like physical, emotional, energetic, but I had not actually addressed the structural piece. And structural pieces are so big. So these are some images that were taken from my blood. And I want you to see that like these images were only taken once they have shown up like like a multiple different of times. So the blood will always have different holograms and images. And the amount of times that they will show up, right, requires for them to actually see, like, oh, okay, this shows up a number of times. So your body is really prioritizing that. So what you can see here is holograms that the blood has as those messengers, as the information. So, for example, here, it's like a perfect image of a stomach. There's a lot of white blood cell activity around it. And what they basically told me was that there was a lot of compression on my stomach. So the body isn't able to properly detox because of some structural misalignment pieces that I had, specifically because of my umbilical cord scar. And what happens when the umbilical cord is snipped too tight, and this is for 99% of us because we don't have home births, we don't leave the umbilical cord as it is to just, you know, fall off on its own, but we snip it nice and tight so that it looks good and we don't have an outie. But what it actually does is it pulls on the diaphragm because that's where the umbilical cord is connected and it can actually compress your organs. So now you have a case like me. I've dealt with, you know, 10, 15 years of symptomology, like a lot of different symptoms and depression and inability to detox and metal toxicity, stuff like that. But what we actually have to look at is that if my body for the last 27 years of my life has been structurally misaligned. That means that not enough blood flow was able to go to vital organs. There was compression, and therefore I was not able to fully detox. So we cannot, like, this is really something that I stress on every single client and work that I do. We can't just focus on, oh, we're going to do a cleanse. We also have to look at the entire system. So these are some beautiful examples. So to reframe or to kind of regroup all that information, fungus, mold, and parasites are not the problem, but they're the cleanup crew. And they show up when the liver, lymph, or kidneys can't keep up with the toxic load. They help digest waste, break down dying tissue, and manage internal debris. And they thrive in acidic, low oxygen environments, but not to harm you, to clean house. Killing them does not fix the root, which is why often I get like 90% of my clients are people that have come from doctors, functional practitioners, naturopaths. They've done all the 3 month long candida protocols, like being on antimicrobials, on antiparasitic herbs, and they're still not feeling good. It is because the entire system was not addressed. So, a really great example for is if you have seen some of what I share, I talk a lot about mucoid plaque and how it coats the intestinal lining. And this is a great example, right? Because we have all this damp plaque, it's undigested food, it's a lot of like, mucus that has been sitting there for 10, 20, sometimes 30 years. And what do you think is causing a beautiful environment for fungus, mold, and parasites? Just think about even where molds and parasites show up in nature or fungus. It's in a damp, low oxygen environment. So now you have all this mucus coating the small intestine. I mean, that is just a recipe for disaster. So this is often why people start to feel so good when they get that out, when they get the liver congestion out. But then also to really working on emotional drainage, which we'll go to in a moment. So the reframe here, seeing pathogens as helpers. Parasites help digest toxicity where liver and bile pathways are congested. I've had literally hundreds of liver flukes come out of my liver when I started detoxing metals and when I started doing liver flushes. Like, I've never seen someone release what I've released, but that shows that really they helped digest that toxicity, that my liver really was compressed and blocked and it wasn't able to properly detox. Candida manages excess sugar and buffers acidity in a stressed internal terrain. Mold thrives in low oxygen, stagnant tissue where their drainage is impaired. So instead of how do I kill this, ask why is my body allowing this to grow? What needs to be released, drained, or shifted? So the step-by-step framework here is to 1, open up your drainage pathways. 2, balancing minerals and hydration. This is super important. 3, binding toxic elements like heavy metals. 4, releasing stored emotions and regulating the nervous system. And this is something I'll address right here and now. When the body is in that chronic fight or flight, which most of us are, all of the body's detox pathways shut off because it's focused on survival, not detoxification. So understand that if your nervous system isn't regulated, I don't care what cleanse you do, I don't care what supplements you take, it is not going to work long term. So the nervous system should always come first. This is the first thing that we address in any of my programs. It is to work on limbic system retraining, nervous system regulation, getting your body into a state that it feels safe, even though it might have symptoms, it feels safe, it feels calm. And from that state, you then can start to pull things from the system. And then building a resilient internal ecosystem. So this entire framework is the foundation of the realignment program. And that is the program that I run 3-4 times a year. We're midway through our current program, and the next round is going to be June 25th. So we have a great discount, 500 off for anyone who wants to join. So stick around when we get to that part as well. So realignment really has 4 pillars: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the energetic and spiritual. So for the physical, of course, we have to start with the nervous system, then nutrition, remineralization, detoxification, structural, which is what I just mentioned, right? Working on structural imbalances, but also movement to help move the lymphatic fluid and to keep tissues nice and lubricated. Mitochondrial health. And then for the mental, this is so important. Subconscious work. If you have a belief that you're not going to heal or that healing is impossible for you, or what, I mean, I've seen it all, right? Like there's something wrong with me. Healing is impossible. If that belief is running your life, and it can be conscious, but it's mostly subconscious, anything we do again is just going to reinforce that belief. You're going to have the same outcome even with my work, which is why we address this part. It's such a big foundation of the work that I do. Internal family systems, really getting to know your parts and understanding them. Why do you have a part that is self-sabotaging? Why do you have a part that likes to stay sick? And when we start to understand those dynamics, we can work with them. Paradigm shifts as well, really focusing on, right, like what is the healed version of myself that I want to step into? Generational and ancestral patterns, understanding how your parents or other generational ancestral beliefs are really stuck in our DNA and how they are running literally our entire life. Belief deconstruction and reprogramming. Then for emotional, we focus on safety and regulation. This is key. Emotional release work, right? Like, how do you start to work with the different emotions in the body? How can you feel them? How can you allow them? Somatic work. We also work with body work and structural pieces and how emotions are stored in the system. Inner child healing as well, super crucial. And then for the energetic and spiritual components, we work on basics of energy work as well as clearing practices. A lot of us have a very porous nervous system, which means that we are empaths. When we walk into a space, we might pick up on things, which also impacts our health. So, this is also really when we work on field integrity and boundaries, past life energetic interferences, relationship with source. So these are all elements that you will be introduced to in the realignment program. But also, if you're not thinking of joining the program, these are all pillars of your health, meaning that I don't care how good you eat. I don't care, right? Like how much you're detoxing or how much you're moving your body. If all of these other parts are not nourished, are out of balance, you are going to have dis-ease in your body. And again, dis-ease is not something we have to be scared of. It is literally the lack of ease. So I'm going to take a sip of water and just see if there's any questions before we move on, because I'm seeing some messages. Let's see. Mhm. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so I'm seeing here, I already know terrain theory, but that hasn't helped because I eat healthy foods and take probiotics, but there is no change. Yeah, so this is really a great example, right? If you know terrain theory, if you eat healthy foods and you take probiotics, we have to look at deeper imbalances. This could be like deeply stored subconscious beliefs. This could be emotions that are locked in the system. This could be structural imbalances. Again, like if you have, and this is why like certain testing is super important, same as like mineral imbalances. Maybe you have heavy metal toxicity. Like I've seen so many clients that have metal toxicity, whether it is from their own metal fillings or sometimes because, their parents had a lot of mineral and metal imbalances. We inherit about 4 generations worth of toxicity. So we're like, we're doing all the right things and we're still not feeling good, but we have to be willing to look at the deeper imbalances. So I will say this, and this is going to sound really harsh, but if you have a belief that nothing works for you and you have tried everything, you're never going to heal. Like that belief, it literally will just give you an excuse to like be like, oh, I don't have to look further because I healed everything. And of course, I'm not saying any of you have this belief, but I have witnessed it in some of my clients that essentially just came to me just to feed back into that belief of I've tried everything and even this is not working for me. But then when we work on that belief system, right, we can really start to shift that paradigm. Okay, so let's see. How do I identify which emotions are problematic and keeping parasites in place? What if I've got current financial issues that cannot be resolved easily? So this is a great question. First of all, obviously, we're going to dive into what we can today, but we can't dive into the depths of everything here. Like emotions that are problematic, there's a lot of things, a lot of tools that you can do to see how they're problematic. Any emotion is problematic if it is unable to fully be processed and felt. Meaning that if you are unable to feel joy, the lack of joy is going to be problematic, right? If you have a lot of repressed anger or memories, and so for some of us, it's literally not, we're not able to actually access that because the nervous system is not at a place where it feels safe to re-experience these memories. And this is why doing consistent work on all these pillars is so important. And if you have financial issues, by the way, guys, this could be a huge component to your health because if you have a lot of financial stress, like I went through this myself for years where, I had less than $200 to my name and I was working paycheck to paycheck. And that stress, that amount of survival stress puts your body in chronic fight or flight. So again, it doesn't matter what you do. So in that case, I would personally, in my healing journey, focus all of my healing on that. And that alone will shift the internal terrain. So we're going to come back to more questions later, but I just wanted to take a pause for that. So, the physical pillar, detox practices, nutrition, nervous system, environment, movement and structure, routines, mitochondrial health. Boom. Like all of these are really, foundational keys to the physical pillar. So, some signs of congestion in the system. First, we have lymphatic stagnation, puffiness and water retention. I had this all the time, swollen lymph nodes. I had chronically swollen lymph nodes right underneath, right here, for years and years. Cellulite, cold hands and feet, brain fog or fatigue, eczema and skin rashes, poor bile flow, which is right that liver, what the liver produces, constipation, light colored or floating stools, digestive discomfort after fatty meals, right upper quadrant tenderness, which is that right upper side, hormonal imbalances, poor gut motility can be constipation, bloating, feeling of incomplete evacuation, SIBO, gas, bad breath, or coated tongue, which is really that sign of that candida. Kidney congestion, dark, scanty urine, edema, puffy face and eyes, lower back pain, especially right around the flanks, and frequent urination at night. So now we're going to introduce the drainage pathways. So this essentially says that the body has a pathway that it follows in order to drain that toxicity, right? So let's say that the colon, which is the bottom of the funnel, is congested. Anything that the cells want to detox will just recirculate back in the system. And this is why it is so important to address the drainage in the right order. If you do a parasite cleanse without first working on proper drainage, and that can last months for some people. We have some people in the program that spend the entire 3 months just on optimizing drainage before we go into deeper cleansing. So just know that this really requires you to be consistent, to focus on, what is causing a lot of this backup. And for a lot of people, it's actually emotions. It's fear. It's the inability to actually drain our experiences, to digest our emotions. So this is much more than physical. Anyone can just follow a protocol, do a cleanse, but that's also why I say, coming into a program such as like the realignment program, it is an initiation and it is going to bring up all your deepest, darkest fears, all the parts of you that you don't want to look at, all your shadows. So it is not an easy program. And I see a lot of people like really struggle with like their internal stories and things like that because it is not just, hey, here's another protocol to follow, go from A to Z, and you're going to be healed. It's like that is not what any of the work I do really stands for. So, oh, let's see. Let's go back to the screen sharing. I'm not sure what happened. All right. Apologies for that. Like I mentioned, technology is not always my best friend. Okay, wait. Let's see how we can get this back up. There we go. Beautiful. So we start with the colon, then we have the liver and bile ducts, and also the kidneys. They're not here, but they are also connected there. They're kind of on the same line. So we focus on, right, we have to be pooping at least once a day, complete elimination, ideally 2 to 3 times a day. We have to have proper bile flow. We have to have proper kidney drainage. And then we go up to the lymphatic system, deeper organs and tissues, and then the cells. So you can't start to pull toxins from the cells if all of these things are backed up. So it needs to be worked in sequence and opened in the right order. So, why does drainage come first? Because detoxification without it creates that recirculation of toxins. This really causes those healing crises and symptom flares. I see this all the time. I did a parasite cleanse and I felt terrible. I worked on things and I felt good for a while, and then all my symptoms came back a lot worse. So, this is really why we have to ease into things and truthfully, for 90% of the population, cleansing is probably not something that we need to jump into because we are actually chronically depleted already. So we have to focus first on remineralization, on the nervous system, on making sure you're actually absorbing your food, you're having enough nutrients, because then and only then does the body actually release toxins on a cellular level. So, first of all, we're going to some drainage activation techniques. These are things that you guys can do at home. They are super powerful tools to just start with pretty much today, tomorrow. And if you're very new to this, this is a great place to start. So, one, for dry brushing, and you do this always towards the heart. I know it says demonstration, but we're kind of close on time. So, watch a YouTube video. Rebounding, lymphatic massage, deep breathing. Deep belly breathing really helps with lymph recirculation. If you don't have a rebounder, just going for a walk or just doing like bouncing works as well. For colon support, you want to focus on hydration with minerals, magnesium supplementation. Now, that doesn't mean any magnesium. This means very specific magnesium in the right ratios. So the only supplements that I work with is a very specific calcium magnesium supplement, because if we supplement magnesium in isolation, what it does is it actually can literally draw calcium from your bones, because we're literally a calcium being. And what that does is actually it can cause osteoporosis on a long term. So this is really why when we're working with minerals, which we'll get to in a moment, we don't want to just focus on isolates. We want to make sure we're taking them in the right ratios for ourselves and our bodies. Abdominal massage and fiber balance, making sure you're getting enough soluble and insoluble fiber. Don't ever just start to be like, I'm going to start taking a tablespoon of psyllium or introduce a ton of flax seeds, because fiber is something that the body needs to get introduced to on a very slow way. So if you just are dumping fiber onto your system, you can guarantee you're going to get constipated, you're going to get bloated, just because the microbiome is like, oh, this is new, this is not for me. So then we have the liver and bowel flow. Morning lemon water. Lemon water is amazing to support with bowel flow. Bitter herbs, castor oil packs over the liver. Always make sure castor oil is in a glass bottle. Proper meal timing and spacing. And for kidney support, proper water intake throughout the day, but specifically with the right minerals. Herbal support, nettle and dandelion are my favorite, and then reducing excessive protein because it can really put stress on the kidneys. This also goes for things like, protein supplementation, as well as what's the word? What do people take again for muscle balance? Creatine. Yeah, can be super harsh on the kidneys. So we definitely want to be gentle with that. Now, mineral balancing. This is something that I've gotten a lot of interest about because this is what I'm currently doing. It takes anywhere from like 1 to 2 years, maybe even longer, depending on your system, on a mineral balancing protocol. Now, let's go into why we need mineral balancing. First of all, minerals are the spark plugs of your cells. No spark is no energy, no function. So many of us are mineral depleted. And when you're deficient, your body holds on to toxic metals like lead, arsenic, and mercury just to keep basic functions going. How does that work, right? we have mineral receptors on our cells, and certain lead, like metals like lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, they can actually displace minerals, meaning that they can actually take up that space and the body will still function by using these metals. And so it would rather use metals than not use anything at all. This is why, in the phase of mineral deficiencies, the body is going to accumulate more metals. And this is also why, if we want to release the metals, we have to replace them with minerals. Otherwise, you're putting even more stress on the body. And this is why chelation never works. We can't just put chelating agents in the body, like IV chelation, taking all these heavy metal detox supplements. Like, this is how I almost killed myself. And this is how I see a lot of people really wrecking their health. So just trust me on this. Don't just start taking heavy metal detox supports, anything, unless you are remineralizing. Now, the one exception of that is a high dose zeolite. I actually have posted recently and post about this because it is already remineralized and it will swap out metals for minerals. So this doesn't mean the zeolite sprays, but if you go to my profile, there will be a link in my bio with product recommendations. And there is just one product I recommend. I've done countless of case studies with them as well. So minerals also help over 3,000 enzymatic processes. Hydration does not work without minerals because the water can't enter the cells without them. This is why so many of us are chronically dehydrated. We have constipation. We feel thirsty all the time, but we're just drinking water. It's because we're mineral depleted. And your detox pathways, they need minerals to function. So as I mentioned, toxins stay stuck. And this is not just on a cellular level, but this also means that, right, our bodies need to create certain digestive fluids as well as have specific detox functions that need specific minerals in order to function. So, mineral deficiency is behind many mystery symptoms: fatigue, anxiety, brain fog, hormonal imbalances. Soil depletion plus chronic stress and emotional suppression is the modern day epidemic of hidden deficiencies. And the mineral balancing is the key to immune resilience, nervous system repair, and even hormone synthesis. And trust me, I used to be the person that said for years and years, you don't need supplements. You can get everything from food. As long as you detox, you don't need it. The truth is, you can't. Our minerals or our soils are literally, I think, up to about 85% more depleted than they were about like 100 years ago. Oh, there we go. It's about 85% less. So even if you eat super healthy, if you're, like eating vegetables and things all the time, you're still going to be relatively depleted. And even if you're getting enough minerals, you might not even be able to absorb them because of other hidden toxicities and things like that. Your body isn't functioning optimally. So, essential minerals and their functions: magnesium activates 700 plus enzyme systems and it supports phase 1 and 2 liver detox. Sodium is critical for extracellular fluid balance and adrenal support. Potassium is required for intracellular functions and heart health. By the way, when I'm talking about these minerals, sodium doesn't just mean, oh, I'm going to eat more salt. It means what is your body actually able to absorb, and it wants to do that in the right ratios. Calcium, structural support, nervous system function. Zinc is, gosh, as you guys know, zinc, copper, they are key for so many things, but specifically immune support, tissue repair, hormone production, but also hair, skin, nails. Selenium, glutathione production, and thyroid function. Trace minerals are cofactor for countless biochemical processes. So if we have a deficiency based on all of these parts and pieces that we just mentioned, we're going to see things like this. So some mineral balancing strategies start here with the basics. Mineral-rich foods: shilajit, salt, pearl powder, animal protein, Brazil nuts, sea salt specifically, Epsom salt, and mineral drops. Like, these are great sources of a lot of these minerals. And then you want to start with opening your drainage pathways. So mucoid plaque, liver flushes, lymph drainage, emotional and somatic release tools, really getting the system to start to flush out these toxins. Then you want to also simultaneously bind these toxic elements. Binders like zeocharge, modified citrus pectin, bentonite clay. And you want to also address the root cause of mineral loss, stress, poor diet, structural imbalances, things like that. And only then is when I recommend people do a specific supplementation with a practitioner based on an HTMA test. So typically, what I tell people, and what I'm also actually in the works with right now, is that we walk people through the realignment process, which is kind of addressing all of these basics, right? The binders, opening drainage pathways, giving you the emotional somatic tools, working on your belief systems, making sure your body's actually absorbing things, giving your body the cofactors to really like start to produce glutathione, things like that. And then after that process, then is your body ready to go into something really intense like mineral balancing? And the reason why it's intense is because when we give the body the right minerals in the right ratios for your body, what it actually will start to do is it will start to retrace old mineral patterns. And when it does so, it also means you are going to experience old symptoms come up, old emotional states, old memories, old traumas. It has been the most spiritual practice to date I've ever done. And I've done a lot of things, and it can get you, gosh, it gets deeper than so many different things, but therefore it's also really, really intense. And I've seen a lot of people start to do these kind of things, start to mess with the minerals, but their drainage pathways aren't open. They don't know how to regulate their nervous system. They don't know how to hold themselves through a really big emotional surge. And so that is really why we start to build that foundation in the realignment program. And typically, what I also tell people is that not everyone needs mineral balancing. And a lot of people actually like go through the program and address so many of their symptoms. And they're like, I feel great. This is kind of what I wanted to do. But if we're talking about like 10, 20, 30 years of chronic issues, kind of like what I have, typically you can get up to like 80, 90% there with doing a lot of the detox work, the emotional work. And then you're going to also have to address some of the deeper, like systematic cellular imbalances. So this is really why I'm giving you guys the option, because some of you guys are going to be here, you're going to have some gut issues, you're going to feel certain things. You might go through a program like this and you're going to feel completely fine. We see it all the time. And then some of you guys have really been dealing with that like 10, 20, 30 years, maybe even more of like really intense chronic symptoms, chronic illness, and just giving you like a realistic timeline because it takes time, right? Like someone on my team recently mentioned that she read something that for every 10 years of a disease or of a symptom, we have to expect about like a year of a healing phase, emotional, mental, energetic, physical, etc. So I know we're at time. This masterclass is going to go a little bit over. We have about another 20 minutes left. But for those of you that need to hop off, I just want to quickly give you actually, let me share this. So we're going to pause the share for a moment. And what I'm going to do here is just drop. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I can't multitask. Just give you guys here in the chat the link to book a call if you are interested to potentially go deeper at some point or want to make use of that discount. So the discount is essentially like another $500 off of the price for the next program. We also have self-paced programs. We have, one-on-one support. We have different tier offerings. So if you're just curious, I'm going to just drop it here. Feel free to, oh, I'm just seeing that I send it as a direct message. That doesn't work. So yeah, feel free to book a call and just know that, we're here to support you if you do have to hop off. But if you don't, feel free to stick around. And we will continue with the presentation. Okay. So then we're going to get to the mental pillar. First of all, subconscious work is really the foundation here. That means addressing your hidden beliefs that influence our physical health. And I've mentioned these before, right? Healing doesn't work for me. It's not possible. Healing, it's going to take me 10 years to heal. Whatever belief system we have, That is what the body holds as truth. And I've seen this so many times with myself. At some point, this is a funny story actually. I had a story for many, many years that, oh, if I start traveling, then I get constipated. So what do you think happened? Every time I traveled, every time I was out of my routine, I instantly got constipated. And after a few years, and this is like probably 2 years ago when I discovered this, and I was like, wait a second. I've just been living my entire life around the story, like taking, like temporary stool softeners when I would go travel. And there was a moment where I was like, what if I just shift the story? What if I just actually have a story that when I travel, I actually have better bowel movements because right now I'm like feeling a lot more spacious and I don't have work. And it started shifting almost immediately. So I really want you to understand the power of your beliefs, of your words, of your thoughts, of your feelings, your emotions. So doing subconscious work and really starting to shift and transform those limiting perspectives that can really help literally like instantly create more freedom, more space in the body. And then we also work a lot with internal family systems, so integrating different parts of the self. So the mind body connection really says thoughts create our physical stress responses, right? We've all seen this. You think about like, oh my gosh, I forgot to enter this person. Instantly we feel that adrenaline surge, that cortisol surge. So it is really important to focus on mastering our mind. My light just dies. This is like the reality of having a an at-home setup. Okay, beautiful. There we go. Then our subconscious beliefs affect our detoxification. So, again, I've seen this so much with clients that were so focused on, I need to get this out. It's like coming from a space of fear. And it literally, like, if you even think about the energetics of that, right? Like, I need to get it out. Like, that is a fear response. So, what do you think the body is going to do? It's going to lock up. And at one point, I had a client who had done 70 liver flushes, like, and it was still releasing, but he was targeting very specific health issues that were still not improving. So we actually paused the liver flushes, no more parasite cleanses. He had done it all. And when we actually started doing the mental work, the energetic work, we did a lot of subconscious work, we did emotional release, we did some like clearing of some entity attachments, and he started releasing way more parasites than he's ever done when he was on a parasite protocol. And his scoliosis started improving. He started seeing improvements even in like the curvature of his nose. So these are really powerful examples of what can happen when we shift, right, the mental, emotional, energetic components instead of just focusing on the physical. So mental patterns influence our nervous system regulation, and ancestral beliefs can also be stored in our DNA. So, your beliefs become your biology, and changing your thoughts is essential to changing your terrain. Now, the mental pillar, and here are some signs that it might need some support. Persistent negative thought patterns, self-sabotaging behaviors, limiting beliefs about health and healing, black and white thinking about wellness, such as this is good, this is bad. Anytime we think that way, you need to do some mental work, including, oh, myself included. I have so many of those beliefs. Recurring thought loops, difficulty changing habits, perfectionism around health protocols, unhealthy attachment to our health identity, resistance to new perspectives, and repeating family health patterns. So if you see that your parents have a certain issue, you have a certain issue, there's a lot of those like deep ancestral beliefs or even emotions that are often linked to that. Then we're going to go into the emotional pillar. So, key components of our emotional terrain is emotional release work using somatic techniques to release stored emotions. Daily emotional processing, so creating space every single day to feel, express, process your emotions, whether that is through like somatic processing, just like tuning into the body. This is a lot of what I teach in realignment as well. How to do that, how to identify emotions, how to allow them, how to have catharsis, which is like what you see a lot online in the videos where people are screaming and crying. That does not necessarily mean you're releasing your emotions, by the way. You don't need to cry or scream to release emotions. You can simply witness and allow the energy to move through your system. So it's about really understanding that. and how to actually have a dialogue with the emotion there and how to release it from the system. Addressing structural imbalances and fascial tension because emotions are locked in the body. And this is why when we do really deep structural work or we see a cranial osteopath and they do really subtle manipulation, suddenly we can have a huge emotional release because finally that tissue became unblocked and now the emotion can flow. So it's not just somatic emotional work. We also have to address the structural piece as well. So, emotions are stored in the physical body. Unprocessed trauma creates energetic blockages, meaning that there is a lack of energy flow, of oxygen, of nutrients. Emotional patterns affect our physiological function, and the body and emotions communicate constantly. I mean, right? You get what I'm saying. Every physical symptom has an emotional component. This is mostly true, but partially true. Meaning that, like, typically we have, right, like physical symptoms that we're experiencing, and either we have emotions associated to that. So if I have, for example, bloating all the time, yes, there might be like a deeper emotional component. Let's say that I felt a lot of shame when I was young and I started tensing up my stomach, or there was less energy flow in my stomach because of that shame. The shame is locked in there. Now, the shame creates a lot of the bloating. It creates that terrain. And over time, I then develop SIBO, for example. However, now that can also have created, right? Like we're here, the body has developed that SIBO or whatever that is for you. But now there's another set of emotions about the symptom. So now I actually feel frustration. I feel sadness that I have SIBO. I feel, I feel guilt when I eat something that aggravates it. So this is really why every physical symptom usually has an emotional component, whether it was before the symptom was there or after. So the body doesn't really know the difference between physical and emotional stress. It really responds the same way to both, sometimes even more to emotional stress. So here are signs your emotional pillar needs support. Difficulty identifying emotions. If you're like, where do I even start? Where are emotions? How do I identify them in the body? Like, that's a huge sign. We really want to have that emotional connection to support the body at all times. Emotional numbness or disconnection, saying that we are not an angry person. I don't get sad. Those things don't affect me. That means that there is some sort of disconnection or numbness, whether it is because as a child you didn't feel safe to express your emotions, or there has been so many years of suppression that you can't feel them. So that's a huge sign. Overwhelming emotional responses, emotional eating patterns. When we feel stressed or sad, we start to eat. Same thing with doom scrolling is another great one, right? Like if we're just like finding ourselves scrolling a lot or like needing a lot of that dopamine can be a sign of emotional suppression as well. Storing emotions in the body, so tension, chronic pain, things like that. Avoiding emotional processing, meaning that we're avoiding our meditations, our breath work, our deeper practices. Recurring emotional triggers, using substances to manage emotions. And this even goes for plant medicine. Like, I hate to say it, but like, if we can't sit with our emotions without needing plant medicine to be like, oh, I'm going to do an ayahuasca journey to like release the sadness, or I'm going to do a medicine journey to like feel into my anger, that means we definitely need emotional support because we should be able to do this on a daily basis with ease. Emotional exhaustion and the resistance to feeling negative emotions. This is what I see the most. People that are saying like, "Oh, I did Joe Dispenza," and like Joe Dispenza is a great example. This is actually how I started as well. And the belief is like, I shouldn't feel anger, sadness, guilt. I just need to focus on the positive. Now, that did not get rid on a physical level of those emotions. You can't just like be in joy all the time and say like, oh, love and light and healing, and completely ignore those parts. Like those younger parts of you have something to say and express, and until we release that and allow it, there's a lot of that yeah, it just creates separation between emotions. So there is an organ emotion connection as well from a Chinese medicine perspective, meaning that an excess of certain emotions can affect the health of an organ or if we are having issues with an organ, let's say that we have liver congestion, we are going to feel more anger, frustration, and resentment. So it is a two-way street, and it's actually a negative feedback loop, saying that, like, if you have liver issues, liver congestion, you're going to feel more anger, frustration, resentment that then also, again, affects the liver. So we really want to work with our emotions to get out of that negative feedback loop. And also then obviously address the physical and support the physical organ. Liver, anger, frustration, resentment. Kidneys, fear, shock, existential uncertainty, but also like panic and anxiety. Panic attacks or feeling anxious is a huge sign of, kidney depletion. Lungs, this is really what gets activated if we have grief, loss, difficulty letting go. This was something for me. I was processing so much grief like over the last couple years, and I got a lot of lung inflammation. It's just almost instant when we have those connections. The heart, heartbreak, lack of connection, sadness as well. If we feel really sad, the heart gets affected. Stomach, worry, overthinking, anxiety as well, but mostly that like worry and overthinking, like a lot of like, those feedback loops, like looping thoughts. Large intestine is connected to the lungs, so we're going to see similar here, holding on to the past, inability to let go. Also, grief is also connected to the large intestine, and deep ancestral patterns is what I see here a lot as well. Thyroid, unexpressed voice, suppressed communication, right? Like all around the throat here. And then the skin boundary issues, disconnection from others. And then also this small intestine is similar to the heart, so lack of connection and sadness. But what I also always say is that it is also a lack of nourishment. So if maybe don't feel a level of nourishment in your life from your friends or from your parents when you were younger, you're going to have issues likely with absorption of nourishment, of nutrients. So this is a huge one to work with. So the river analogy really helps us explain this, right? If there is a river with easy flowing water, there is no blockages. However, if there is restriction and blockages, which is really the emotions, right? It should flow like a river. We're really going to see a lot of that like gunk buildup. And therefore, we can also see like it's, yeah, like the bacteria, the dirt, the murk. Like that's kind of how I want you to also see when we get emotional constipation, is what I call it. We literally can build up more gas, more bacteria, more fungi again. Like there's a low oxygen environment. We're creating a terrain for dis-ease. Energetic. All right. So the energetic components of the energetic components of our health is we want to always be clearing the subtle blocks as well and focusing on these things. So, first of all, we want to understand and work with the body's energetic systems. We want to understand how can we do energy work on ourselves, on others? Where do we like how can we feel the subtle energy even? So this is a huge pillar that we address in realignment, kind of more towards the end when we've addressed the physical, emotional, mental, and now we're going into really working with the subtle body clearing practices, such as removing energetic blockages, even things like, for many of you guys, this is going to sound woo woo, but even like entity attachments. Sometimes we even see entities as fractured parts of the self, right? So what you can tune in, for example, is let's say that as a child, you had a really, really intense emotional experience. There's a part of the self, part of the psyche that can fragment and take on almost like a demonic shape. And so now we feel like there's like a demonic entity, but really it's just a part of ourself that needs to be loved and integrated. So doing that work on like releasing entities and working with them and really clearing the energetic field can be super important to our physical health as well. So then past life experiences, resolving karmic patterns that influence your health. This is something that if you do past life regression, beautiful, but often it's something that if it wants to come up in your life, it will. So with a lot of these things, ancestral, generational blocks, if you work with the right practitioner, it's not something that you need to seek, it will come up. And this is what I see a lot of my clients. We're just doing a regular session and suddenly they're in a past life memory, or, even people in like the quantum bundle have experienced this a lot. Like they started seeing and feeling really like how many generations their issue was connected to or their suppression was connected to. So don't worry, don't think about like, oh, now I also need to go see a past life regression and a hypnotherapist and this. Just work on the foundations, and when your system is ready for it, this will come up if it needs it, and not everyone needs to do this type of work. So, how energetic blocks manifest physically. Persistent symptoms that don't respond to physical treatments. I see this all the time, right? Like they're doing all the right things, and then we actually address it energetically, emotionally. There's energetic cords, ties, there's emotions, or even like foreign objects. Obviously, this is something in the that we can see in our minds, not necessarily like an actual physical foreign object that wants to be removed, and then suddenly there's energy flow in the body part again. Unexplained fatigue or energy drains, recurring patterns in relationships and health, an intuitive knowing that something else is at play, or symptoms that appear connected to other people's energy. So if you're someone that always absorbs, right? Like that person's feeling sick, now I'm getting sick. Now that person's feeling this, I'm getting this. So that is usually an energetic block or a gap in our fields. So the energetic body is really the blueprint for the physical body, and clearing at this level creates lasting change. That doesn't mean that we can resolve everything energetically. Again, this is something that we need to really look at all the pillars. So, signs that you need support here is feeling drained around certain people, energy fluctuations and not that are not really related to physical factors, an intuitive sense of something else affecting your health, recurring patterns despite addressing physical factors, unexplained physical sensations, feeling stuck in certain areas of your life, persistent symptoms without clear physical cause, a sensitivity to environments and spaces, unusual dreams or synchronicities related to your health, and sensing energy blockages in the body. This is something that is one of my favorite things to do for myself if I feel blocked in my life is to literally do these energy practices on myself and to actually feel like where in my field the blockages are. And when we work with them, it is actually crazy how things can shift in your life. So that's a huge part of how you can actually work with these different energies and work beyond really the physical body because there's, as you all probably know, and if not by now, you probably are getting it, there's so much more to life than just the 3D that we're living in. So, four immediate action steps that you can do today to really start boosting your terrain. For the physical terrain, drinking 32 ounces of warm lemon and sea salt water in the morning. Lymphatic slapping, which is literally just slapping yourself all over the body. YouTube has a great video for this as well. And rebounding for 10 minutes. Castor oil packs on the liver every night for 7 days. Eliminate dairy, gluten, and seed oils for 7 days. Go see an osteopath, craniosacral, or fascial unwinding specialist. Do a mucoid plaque cleanse and introduce binders. This is something that in a week I'm actually launching, which is like a small $100 offer for a 10-day somatic emotional mucoid plaque cleanse for those of you that are not ready for realignment yet. So stay tuned for that. If you're on my email list, which I'm sure most of you are, you'll get the information on that. Then mental terrain support. Write down your number one repeating thought loop and reverse it from I'm not healing to my body heals when I feel safe or when it's ready at its own time. And this obviously is going to take time, especially if it's been looping for decades. Voice record your healed self version and listen to it before bed for 7 nights. So, literally getting into a visualization space and visualizing who you are, what you look like, what you feel like when you're expressing full health in your body. Like, who are they? What do they do? What are they wearing? Like, what do they feel in their body? Like, how does their stomach feel? How does their energy flow feel, right? And recording that and just listening to it for 7 days. Writing a letter to your body from your subconscious, asking what it truly needs. Then emotional terrain support, set a 3-minute timer and scream, shake, cry, or move emotion through your body without analyzing it. This is extremely helpful after we get triggered. So if you've had an argument with your fiance or with a friend, just ask for a timeout, go to your room, take 3 minutes, and just do whatever the body wants to release. Track your three top emotional triggers this week and journal what physical sensations they are creating. This is really when we start to map, right, the emotions to the physical experience, to the somatic experience. So if you get really triggered, let's say that you're feeling not enough, or you're like feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm having an imposter syndrome come up. Like, what does that feel like in your body? Get really clear on all the parts and pieces that start to feel constricted. Like, what does that constriction feel like? Does it feel like an ache? Does it feel warm or cold? So, really starting to map the somatic experience. And then from there, you can also map your emotional holding zones, such as, right, like if I feel grief, where do I feel that? Do I feel it in my lungs? Do I feel it as like a pit in my stomach? And just massaging or bringing your hands to those areas for a couple days and really bringing some love and attention there. For energetic terrain report, you can do a cord cutting practice with anyone draining you, salt and clay baths to pull dense energy, cleansing your home with Palo Santo, sage, or sound, such as like, frequencies. I know someone already was talking about Solfeggio frequencies in here, or even using like sound bowls, things like that, or clapping, like even just like sound interference can help. Put a bubble around your field before every interaction. Imagine that only love can enter or exit. This is really helpful when we're spending time with friends that are draining us or where we feel like, oh my gosh, they're always complaining, is just to imagine that bubble. And then lying down and placing your hands on your solar plexus and say, I call my energy back to me out loud. This is something that I used to do 4 times a day before I like actually had a strong enough system because I was so porous. It was like literally calling back all my energy and releasing all the energy that wasn't mine. Doing that multiple times a day will really anchor and ground your energetic terrain. My throat is hurting from talking so much. All right, we're almost there, guys. Wow, we're 25 minutes over. So thank you so much for still being here. Okay, what are the foundations for a strong terrain? One, nutrient density. Animal protein is huge. We need all the essential amino acids, and we also need to be able to break it down. So, bioavailability, minerals, and fat soluble vitamins. Strong digestion, supporting our enzymes, bile, and stomach acid with the right nutrients, right? With a lot of these different practices and tools. Circadian alignment, deep sleep, daily movement, nervous system flexibility, building safety, not avoidance, clean environment, filter your water, air, and reduce EMFs, emotional expression, relational health, practicing your boundaries, saying no, co regulation, and connection. These are really, really big. Spiritual anchoring, your connection to source, God, source, purpose, however you want to connect to that. Inner tracking, really listening to your body's messages, which is what I mentioned, right? Like starting to understand, oh, what am I feeling here when I'm hearing this? And then consistency. Tiny aligned actions over extreme fixes. So resilience is not built through quick fixes, but through consistent, aligned daily practices. So the old paradigm was pathogens attack the body. We must fight and destroy the invader, right? Like we have to take antibiotics when we're starting to feel a little thing, or we have to do a parasite cleanse. We have to kill the molds. The body is weak and vulnerable, and a supplement cleanse or practitioner is going to fix us. This is really the old paradigm. And the invitation, if you're willing to take it, is to really shift into this new paradigm, which we have discussed over the last hour and a half. So, disease reflects your internal imbalance. Start with the internal terrain. Pathogens are scavengers, not enemies. The body is always working to restore balance. It is not broken. It is not trying to kill you. It is not against you. And we need to work with the body to optimize it. So if there is a flu, we need to support the body's detoxification process, right? If the body is asking for more rest, we need to support that process. So we shift from fighting symptoms to restoring harmony. Your body is never working against you. Symptoms are attempts at healing. The presence of microbes is a sign your body needs help, not punishment. Healing happens when we support the body's natural processes and not override them. So the big picture is really that terrain is not about doing more, but it's about deeper listening. So Now I'm going to kind of recap everything and introduce like how we do this over the course of 12 weeks in the realignment program. So the realignment program, oh my gosh, okay, the realignment program is a comprehensive 12-week journey to terrain restoration. So we really work on all those pillars that we just introduced. And this program really came to life after I had worked it with a lot of my one-on-one clients, and I have adapted it, shifted it. It's always adapting and shifting. This is an ever, this is an ongoing work in progress because more research comes out, because I'm learning more, because, you know, there's more input. So just understand that if you're here, every single time we do this program, it is entirely different. It is more up to speed. It is like it's a deeper process every single time. So or month one, we really go over foundations and assessment. So we talk about terrain theory, we work about around root causes, we have the foundations, and then the regulation. So in month one, what we essentially focus on is we get you set up with a 20-minute one-on-one call with one of our coaches. And we also have you fill out a questionnaire that some people literally take an hour and a half for. So we really understand your entire big picture, emotional, mental, physical, what you've done so far, what worked, what didn't work. And then the practitioner will ask clarifying questions based on that so that we can really refine your protocol. Then the coach and I together will create your personalized detox protocol. So I will personally create everyone's protocol that is in the group, and they are always different. So we kind of have the classic protocol that everyone goes through, which is why it's also an option to do a self-paced version. But if you want those personalizations, you want specific supplements, you want specific journal prompts, you want to understand which pieces are really highlighted for your journey, that is when you come into that live program. So week one, typically we go through, right, like addressing the colon drainage. Week two, we go deeper into that and then go into the liver drainage. So each time we build on focusing on drainage, nervous system regulation, but it could be we have people sometimes come in that are either more advanced or they need more nervous system support. So we will never recommend you to do something that you're not ready for. And this is really why sometimes people come in and they end up working the first 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, even sometimes on rebuilding regulation, really making sure that they are rewriting their whole narrative and belief system. And they don't really even touch any physical cleanses until like about midway through the program. So just know you're supported in that process if you come to see us. Then week five, we go into emotional release, somatic processing, really going in and understanding what is my body telling me? How do I release these emotions from my body? How do I work with that? Then we go deeper into drainage, but also drainage on an emotional level. So if I hold on to certain emotions, what does that do for my organs and things like that? Then week seven, we've changed the program a little bit around. As I say, it is a living and breathing entity. So week seven right now, we actually go a lot deeper into deeper protocols. So by about week seven, people are tending to do a lot of the foundational work, and then they want to do, for example, a protocol that is specifically designed for sealing the gut lining, or for going deeper into maybe working with parasites and doing a gentle parasite cleanse, like after they have done all of those foundational pieces. Or maybe you want to go deeper into mineral balancing and heavy metal reduction. So that's where week seven comes in. Week eight, we really go deeply into understanding all the parts and pieces of your healing journey. Why are you maybe still expressing certain symptoms? How come some clean up and others don't? And what parts and pieces do you want to go into in your journey now? Then week nine, we actually will go really deeply into somatics. So having guided somatic practices above what you already had. And then week 10 and 11, this is really when we shift more into the energetic components. So getting really clear on how do I do energy work on myself? How do I really do these really amazing visualization practices? How do I clear my energetic boundaries? Things like that. And then week 12 is really when we bring it all together and give you an understanding of everything you've done and what you can do from there. So the beauty is also that we have live meetings twice a week. So that means we have a weekly meeting, typically 90 to 2 hours, where I am on Q&A, one-on-one support. So there's a lot of hot seat coaching. Everyone gets the ability to share, which is why it typically ends up being 2 hours. And this is really where most people get their one-on-one support as well from me. And then we also have guest workshops every week. So we introduce, right, like mineral balancing practitioners. We have a quantum medicine doctor. We have really incredible other practitioners because I don't claim that I have all the answers, but with a team of practitioners, we can give you the most wide approach that's available. So, that said, I also have a lot of amazing practitioners that I refer out to often. So, if you come to us and we do think that there's deeper testing that's necessary, we want to get you set up with either electrodermal screening or an HTMA test or labs and things like that. We always have within my network, we have people who we refer out to. And then the beauty as well is that, oh, beautiful, there it is. So yeah, as I mentioned, 20-minute one-on-one custom detox protocol, which will change as well. So we'll check in with you multiple times, how things are going. Do we need to change your supplements, your food? Do you feel ready for the next step? We have the weekly live group calls. You have a complete curriculum with video modules every single week. And then we also have a super beautiful meditation, breathwork, visualization, quantum healing library as well to really supplement what you're doing. So there's no shortage of videos to watch, of meditations to do, of practices to do. And you have access to a private community group where me and the coaches are available Monday through Friday to answer your questions, as well as, really check in with you and encourage you to continue to go. So the current investment is $3,500 or three payments of $1,200. But we are running a special. So for the next 72 hours, we're going to offer you a $500 off. That doesn't mean you have to book your call within 72 hours. So as long as you just make a note somewhere that says Masterclass, we will know that you have booked the call basically within these 72 hours. And then for the first five people that sign up, let's actually do the first. We'll do the first eight people that sign up for an extra $100 off. So that would be a total of 2,900. And then we have flexible payment plans as well. So if you need a more flexible payment plan, and sometimes we can also, have a conversation with you and work something out that works. So definitely don't hesitate to contact us. And then we also have a self-paced version, which is now discounted to 1,500. So if you don't want to do the live calls, if you don't need the one-on-one support, if you feel confident enough to really listen to your own body and go at your own pace, then we have the $1,500 discounted self-paced option. So you're more than welcome to either email me if you want to lock in your spot directly, or if you just want to book the call, you can do that as well. So I will both drop that link to book a call one more time here in the chat, and we're gonna go to questions in a moment as well. And I'm just seeing what days and hours are the meetings. So this round we had the meetings at like 5 p.m. PST, but we realized that a lot of people are worldwide. So to really support most people, what we're doing right now is we're shifting that to a weekend morning. So that is weekend morning for most US time zones, and it's going to be weekend afternoon/evening for most European time zones. So that is really what that looks like. And then we also have the other call sometime during the week. So that said, I'm always open. Sometimes I will shift calls depending on like if the container needs that, but typically like the weekend is when most people can attend. And I'm dropping as well if you just are like, I want to join right now. I will drop a link here that will give you um actually, you know what? I'm dropping the link here. So this link doesn't have to $500 off, but we will refund you the 500. So if you just want to buy it immediately, we can send you the refund of 500. And you can always just message us and we can actually send you the correct link for the 3,000. And then, yes, you can pay via PayPal. Just email us. It is not usually the way that we go, but it is an option. So you can just email us at info@avahove.com. I'll drop it in the chat here. So now I want to take some time. I'm going to stop the share and take some time to answer some questions. Okay, so Beautiful. So, okay. So first of all, I'm seeing here, what does it mean healthy foods? Do you propose something specific way of eating, like paleo, keto, or more respecting Ayurvedic principles? So healthy foods means that it looks different for everybody, which is why in the program as well, we actually highlight multiple ways of eating. So we have a diet that's more detox oriented or cleansing, like we have a diet that's more nutrient dense or more about really like nourishing the system. And so depending on your symptom, on your constitution or your Ayurvedic constitution, we will shift diet recommendations for you specifically. So I don't believe there's one diet that works for everyone. I think people that are in fast oxidation are going to do more well with like a keto or a paleo diet. People like myself who are currently in a slow oxidation need more carbs. You need more fuel in that sense and less protein because if you are not able to digest your protein optimally, of course, it will overwhelm your system. So it really depends on the individual. Then the CalMac that I prefer, again, if you go to the link in my bio, there is a link to product links and recommendations. And I think it's called Mineral Balancing Valence. That is the favorite company that I personally use. It's going to give you a discount as well. So yeah, it's a really great CalMac. It's called CalMac Fusion, and it's the only thing I'll take. And if you start to take that one, start really slowly because you're even just taking calcium and magnesium in the right ratios will push out metals. So you want to start with like 1 to 2 capsules, and you always want to take it with binders as well. Chelation screwed me up back in 2000. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that is a thing I see a lot. So, can you take magnesium and calcium together? Um, Not really. Like again, as you said, right? They are sometimes they're not necessarily competing for absorption, but it also depends on like again the ratios, the forms, things like that. So that's why I like to take them together in the sense of like very specific ratios with other cofactors as well. What if I just need the subconscious work? Is that possible with you? Yeah, I actually have a lot of my one-on-one clients that are mostly coming to me for subconscious, emotional release, energetic work. We will touch the physical components, but sometimes, it's not like the drivers. So that is definitely going to be looking more either the one-on-one program. However, we also have people in the realignment program that are feeling really good physically, but really want to come to like learn more about like the emotional, energetic components as well. So that is a big part of the journey. Um, okay, let's see. Sodium butyrate supplement. I am using this personally. Yeah, I like sodium butyrate, but at the same time, I also want to make sure that we get the body in a space where it actually produces its own butyrate. Let's see. What if you can't make the live calls? So if you can't make the live calls, we have them recorded. They are available within 24 hours after the meeting, and you also will get lifetime, I say lifetime access. If I, for some reason, end up closing down my business in 5 years, then of course that also closes. But yeah, you'll at least have access for likely 2 years plus. And if you need one-on-ones, we actually have practitioners that either have gone through similar training as I have within the program. So think like somatic practitioners, emotional release practitioners, or other nutritionists, doctors, things like that, that you can buy one-on-one time with. So if you, and then I do that sometimes as well. I'll open up my calendar for one-on-ones, but those are obviously going to be more affordable than doing a one-on-one with me. So yeah, depending on what you need and you need some one-on-one time, we do have that option within the program as well. So what do you feel brings more healing, liver flushes or mucoid plaque lenses? I honestly can't say that. It depends on the individual and it really depends on what your body needs more. Yeah, that's gonna highly differentiate between the individuals. If we're in a bad place with chronic itching, what can we do between now and late June? So the beauty is if you did want to sign up right now, we don't do this typically, but for a lot of my clients, if they're saying like, hey, I'm having a lot of these symptoms, I will get you set up with one of our coaches before the program starts so that you can already have your one-on-one. We can start to build your protocol and we can already give you some recommendations so you do some prep work before June. How can one increase oxygen in the body? Breath work, right? Like that's a huge way of increasing oxygen in the body, hyperoxygenating the body. But also like there's so many ways to increase oxygen in the body. Sometimes it's as simple as working on structural imbalances, and therefore there will be more blood flow to the body, making sure that we have enough red blood cells as well. There's so many ways to increase oxygen. And some people like ozone therapy. I'm personally not a fan just because my body is quite sensitive to it, but it can be super powerful. Can a highly dysregulated nervous system make someone susceptible to molds? Oh, absolutely. Like 100%. And what I like to look at as well is like, why is your nervous system so dysregulated? There's probably also deeper mineral and imbalances and nutrient imbalances that are creating your adrenals to really be depleted, your kidneys to be depleted, and therefore there might be more dysregulation in your system. There might be a lot more of that like sympathetic dominance, and therefore you're going to really see the accumulation of metals and then potentially, right, like the molds down the line. So yeah, there's so many different ways. Is this program adapted for a genetic illness? Can we reverse the expression of the DNA? So, yes, and I unfortunately, since I'm not a doctor, I'm not allowed to claim or say that I'm healing anything. So, that said, anything, in my opinion, is either reversible or we can support the body with it, right? So, like even if, for example, someone has stage 4 cancer, at that point, you might not be able to like help them heal or recover. But what you can do is really increase their life expectancy and their quality of life. So it's the same thing the way I look at like genetic illnesses, because I obviously have no idea what you're referring to when you say genetic illness. In a lot of people, DNA alteration is possible, or the expression of the symptomology that is, related to that can be changed, as well as like if, for example, people have like the MHTFR gene, I always say that wrong. There's nutrients that you can provide to the body or things that you can do to really help them actually like methylate a lot better. So, what's the protocol for taking binders for how long, and what additional supplements would generally be recommended? This is something that we would discuss in the program just because it is different for every individual. Some people are not ready for binders. I was not ready for binders in a long time. So, I don't really like to make any recommendations for how long and additional supplements because it is highly individual. Where should one start to treat candida? Gosh, I mean, mineral balance, opening up your drainage pathways, liver congestion, like bowel flow is huge to treat candida. Making sure that you have adequate minerals, releasing, metals, things from the system as well. So starting to treat candida, what you can do is watch the masterclass back and just start with all of those key points that I address, and then just making sure, of course, that like your diet is optimized in the sense that you're actually able to digest it, you have enough nutrients, your drainage is working properly, and then you can address deeper imbalances later. All right, we're going to call it right there. And I'm going to close off. So if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around. It was such a pleasure as always. And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed the masterclass. I'm always open for, questions and things like that on email. So if you have a question specifically related to the program and you don't want to book a call, feel free to message me privately. And I really hope that you guys had a great time, and we will be back with more free offers, more lower tier offerings very soon to hope that all of you guys have something that serves you. So have a beautiful rest of your Sunday, and we will see each other again soon.